Okay. So my name is Andreas Russo, and in this video we're going to talk about HMOs, housing in multiple occupation, prosecutions, and fines. So this is what we're going to talk about, but not too much detail. What we're going to talk about first of all is something that maybe to most of you is extremely clear, which is impossible to be immune to prosecutions and fines. What I mean by that is no matter what you do, if the council, the fire brigades want to prosecute you, they will even make things up to prosecute you. But also there's something else. The amount of legislation you have to comply with is so vast that you will always fall foul of some sort of rules. 100%. This is why the council cannot, if they try to prosecute you immediately, as they tried with me in one occasion last year, actually this year, I think, yes. We're in 2025 this year. So first of all, what they have to do is give you time. So once they identified the fault, or they made up the fault, whatever that may be, they need to give you time to rectify it. If it's a fire hazard, then you need to do it pretty much there and then. So it doesn't matter, drop everything, get emergency contractors, pay over the odds, do it there and then. Otherwise, they have to give you time. So what they've done in my case, for example, they just came with a warrant, and one of my HMOs, licensed, by the way, licensed HMOs. They identified some fake faults. Some of them were fake, some of them were maybe faults. So because they never actually found them before, they tried to prosecute. But I told them in the interview under caution that if they wanted, they can prosecute. I'll defend myself. The prosecution will fall flat on his face. Plus, we're going to expose them online. This is what I told them at the interview under caution. They have the recording. We requested the recordings. They never actually sent them back to me because I think they're a bit scared of being exposed. But anyway, so the council, the fire brigades can either prosecute you or fine you. Now, the fines are called civil penalty notices, and what happened is, before 2016, you were we landlords were quite lucky because they could not fine landlords. They could only prosecute, and prosecutions are very hard. So they need a huge burden of proof, and it is very, very costly. And then what happens is, if a landlord has, even if the defense is not strong, but they just it gives a full defense, then it gets harder and harder, and then they get discouraged. This is the good thing about prosecutions from that point of view. What they're looking for, before 2016, the councils, we were looking for easy targets, pretty much. Landlords that only had one property, this is what they thought in Lincoln they were dealing with, and tired old landlords, so that these landlords would not pose any resistance in court and would actually get a successful prosecution. But usually before 2016, they wouldn't even try with normal people, normal landlords like myself, because they're too young, too full of vitality, they can pose resistance, not worthwhile. But in 2016, because of that problem, there's been a change in legislation where, unfortunately, the government has given power to the councils to put fines in place of prosecutions. So the burden of proof, according to the legislation, is the same as prosecution, but it's actually easier for councils to slam fines anyway, and then it is up to you to appeal it. appeals, I think, are free of charge. I cannot remember, but you can actually ask ChatGPT about that. So basically, after 2016, they can fine you for breaches in HMO regs, but also breach on planning, planning breaches. So that's what they can do, unfortunately, nowadays. So what you can do as a landlord, you can minimize the likelihood of successful prosecutions and minimize them to pretty much quite close to zero. But if they want to press prosecutions, it's up to them. As long as you've got a very strong defense, you're mostly fine. But in my case, when it came to me last year and this year, I told the council straight, so look, if you want to prosecute, go ahead. And basically I send them my, I call it skeleton of defense. I think it was, 40 pages long, outlining how the procedure was completely wrong, that they weren't following none of the procedures that we're supposed to follow. What they identified as faults were not even faults and whatnot. And then they came with another visit and then said, oh, well, we'll drop everything. You'll be pleased to let you know we'll drop everything. Oh, well, if you want, you can carry on. I was almost about to say, I haven't got a problem with that. So basically, I've learned that it's impossible for authorities to. It's impossible to guarantee that authorities will never prosecute you, but it is possible that you minimize the likelihood of them to be successful. And my personal tactic is whenever I'm under attack, I just attack back over emails and also publicly if I'm really pressed to that. Because what the authorities do not like when they the authorities, meaning the people who are employed by the government that would like to prosecute landlords or whoever, business owners, they don't like people who defend themselves. They really don't like it because you put obstacles to their successful prosecution. So as soon as you start sending them emails defending yourself and then counteracting all their statements, in my case, were false statements as well. We've got everything there. Maybe we'll just make a booklet on it. I'm not sure. But they get discouraged and they don't like it. And they usually drop things quite easily and quickly. And then on top of it, if you start slamming things online, then is even more discouraging because what they fear is loss of face in case in case things go, in case they cannot prosecute you successfully. But I've learned this lesson in 2014 when I had the MHRA trying to withdraw all the devices that I sold through one of my companies. So basically what happened at that point, the MHRA tried to order this forceful recall of all the devices. And one of my business advisors said, well, you need to get a lawyer. So I was desperate because recalling these devices were something that is extremely, I didn't have the money for it. I basically didn't have the money to refund the customers. No way I had that. So I was in panic mode. I immediately followed the advice. I started calling lawyers. One lawyer said, well, consultation fee, how much is it? I said, £500 for 1 hour, I think 1 or 2 hours, I cannot remember. But £500, I remember that figure. It's somewhere in the books. Paid it in advance. The guy came, listened to me a bit, and then at the end, I asked him for his advice, and he said, well, they can prosecute you. And I went, okay. So I paid you £500. All you're here for is to tell me that they can prosecute me. Any solutions? They can prosecute you. I said, listen to what they say. I paid £500 to learn that they could prosecute me, and I had to listen to what they said. And I followed their advice. whatever they asked me to do. Obviously, that was a waste of money, waste of time, but at least I learned that they can prosecute me. And then what I learned after is that all government agencies can prosecute you, even if you're a normal citizen, don't own any business, don't run anything. Somebody can prosecute. Well, the police can prosecute. The crime prosecution can prosecute you even for things you haven't done. I hear there's Facebook posts, prosecution. People go into jail for Facebook posts. So it is very likely. So don't be poor. One of the things, do not be poor.
Right, mate, sorry.
No problem.
Just got this parcel for you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
On there. All right.
So they can prosecute you. Then I paid £2,000 to another lawyer to try and fix this problem because I could not really recall all these devices. Paid £2,000 in advance, and all they've done, we're talking to over emails to the MHRA, and they were saying, "Yeah, Mr. Russo will do whatever he asks you. You ask him to do." And I thought, hang on a second, I've got a lawyer. Just say yes. I'm paying £2,000 to say yes. And I've asked this lawyer that paid £2,000 in advance, well, how can we fix it? I said, well, just do whatever they ask you to do. So, well, I'm going to go bust. What's the point of giving you £2,000 then? But basically what I found the solution myself, which is that device I sold had a medical claim or a number of medical claims. All I had to do is just remove those medical claims, issue new manuals, and the game was pretty much fixed. And I had the MHRA saying that in writing, pretty much that if a device doesn't have any medical claim, is out of the remit. But they did not. The lawyer I paid £2,000 did not do that work. I've done that work. Because I was working pretty much from morning until I just didn't have any energy, just going to bed. I wouldn't do any exercise. I lost loads of weight at that point under depression, but I had to fix it. Basically, I fixed it with a final email to the MHRA. I just dismissed the lawyer who I paid £2,000. Said, look, forget about it. Whatever I paid you. Send a final email to MHRA. So look, issued the new manuals. There's no medical claim. You say, the MHRA yourself, you're saying that if it doesn't have these claims, it's out of your remit. It's not out of your remit. The guy didn't like it in the MHRA, nothing he could do. He never prosecuted me, by the way. And then a year later, in 2015, I sold the same device. The competitor, because it was the competitor that bribed the MHRA at the point. The competitor then tried another government body, but at that point I had everything wrapped up, meaning everything very well protected legally, because I spent 1 year, I think in the region 1 year, to make sure that whatever attacks came, I had a huge amount of protection, loads of layers of protection. It was pretty much impossible. It obviously would have been possible to prosecute me, but it would have fallen flat on its face, 100%. So to the point that I had a government agency coming into one of my houses looking for me, requesting for documents, and then I said to them, look, already done that work. You're not because I knew the legislation, how it was implemented. You're not, and it was the trading standards at the time. Basically, I think what they've done, the competitor, I think they bribed trading standards as well, because it was one officer in particular, as usual. It wasn't the whole team, it was just one officer, being very, very aggressive. I said, well, my name is Andreas Russo, this is my date of birth. I'm going to give you nothing, absolutely zero, because I've done my due diligence. You don't even have any jurisdiction in this particular thing, in this particular context, because of these following reasons. So I'm not going to give you anything. Prosecute me. I said, prosecute me. The person who was there watching, so I was on the phone to this very nice government officer. She was very upset. The government officer was very upset because she was disarmed. Because at the point I said, just prosecute me, meaning, come on, come for it. And she knew she couldn't do anything. And I sent a very angry email to her boss. Her boss replied that she was considering questioning me under caution with the police. Up to that, I said, well, try it. Nothing happened. I sold that device. I think we turned over in the region of $250,000 after that, I think. Was it worth it? I don't think so. But anyway, so basically the lesson is, what you have to do as an HMO landlord is to make sure that you protect yourself from possible prosecutions. The number one rule is always apply for a license before you let the premises. Always apply for it. Even if you don't have the license yet, it doesn't really matter. You have to apply for it. And that is a huge protection. Huge protection. And then mostly fire regulations compliance. And I think we're going to make one video on fire regulation compliance. But this video is pretty much teaching you that there is no way you can guarantee that you will not be prosecuted. What you can actually do is minimize that any attempted prosecution will very, very, very likely fail. And then I've got various ways to. I've got a number of tactics that I've used it for over a number of years. So, but the main thing is, I always go for prevention. I study the law. I study how it is implemented. I try to be as compliant as possible. And then in HMOs, I've done it for so many years. So it's very to us it's plug and play. What we do is buy properties. Basically, I assign the deeds, I send the money, and then the team does the work. I mean, I don't pretty much the refurbishment. I do some work on the refurbishment, plastering and all that, but even that's going to go very soon. But then all the management, I've got it handled by my PAs, my personal assistants, and they do everything on my behalf. Pretty much, I can go on holiday whenever I want if I need to, but it's far too boring for me to do. So hopefully you've learned something in this video. Andreas Russo here again. Thank you for watching.